Okay, so today, can we talk about some study methods that worked out?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people ask me how I learned English. I've been studying English for a long time. Some study methods have worked, but some haven't. You've been studying Japanese for a long time, so I think we can share effective study methods with our viewers.
Mm.
As always, I have three reasons for this today. So let me talk about one of them first. So first, I spoke English with my friends every day when I was in university, which was really effective. I wanted to be able to speak English, so I majored in English and American literature, and I actively tried to speak English with my friends, even if I made tons of mistakes. When I was a freshman in university, I could only say I like baseball or something like that, but by the time I graduated from university, I was able to speak enough English to maintain a conversation. So I think this is one of the reasons, and I think that was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you think of any effective methods that worked out for you?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you just in a similar vein to that. Basically, I was able to make a lot of progress just studying on my own, but then when I finally did move to Japan, I also kind of studied Japanese at a language school, so
Mhm.
that was like I think about 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, I think is what it was. So yeah, maybe like 15 hours a week of dedicated like language school studying Japanese. And that was great. I had friends who I could speak Japanese with. And for me, it was important to make friends with non English speakers. Because, if I had been with like other American people or whatever, or Canadians or anyone who was a native English speaker, it would have been too easy for us to just revert back to English instead of speaking
Mhm.
Japanese to each other.
Uh,
But actually, my best friends at language school were Taiwanese, so they were from
mhm.
Taiwan. So they did not speak English, and I did not speak
Yeah.
Chinese or Taiwanese. So our only means of communication was Japanese that we were
Mhm.
studying at language school. And just having those friends and talking with them and hanging out with them outside of language school as well, I think was one of the most important things and most successful study methods was just being able to have friends to talk to outside of class. But also, I mean, it wouldn't have worked. I think we've talked about this before, but it wouldn't have worked if that was the only thing I was doing. But
Mhm.
combining that with my Japanese study was extremely successful. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've talked about this before, but of course, it's important to study grammar, pronunciation, and the basic vocab. And then, combining all of these three and, talking with your friends, I think
Mm-hmm.
that would be better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, you know what? When I was in university, I had many friends who could speak English, and some of them were returnees. Do you use the word returnees?
Returnees?
帰国子女. Do you know the word 帰国子女?
So like they had returned to the US from after living abroad, you mean, or what?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the US, but people who are born in Japan and then
Right.
some people go to other countries and then they come back to Japan. In this
Right.
case, those people are called returnees. But
Right.
I
Oh yeah,
don't know
sorry,
whether
sorry. I
you.
was thinking about it just from my own context because I live in the U.S. But yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Oh,
any
okay,
any
okay,
any
okay.
country, right? I just sounded
Yeah,
like a stupid, prideful American. I feel like we already have a bad reputation for being like trying to make everything about us.
I think it's okay. Can you hear me now? Your screen froze for some reason. Can you hear me now? John's gone. What's going on? He's gone for some reason. What's going on? What's going on? He'll come back in no time.
Hello.
Hi, you
Sorry.
came back.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, this is the first time. But anyways, where were we? Yeah, I think you're talking about the US.
yeah. I was just saying that I felt bad. Wait, because where did you study abroad? Or no, gosh, I was thinking that you studied abroad, but is that true? Was your university in Japan or were you somewhere else?
My university was in Japan, but when I was a
Okay.
sophomore, I went to the US and I went to a language school in Los
Okay.
Angeles. But at that time, I ended up speaking Japanese all the time. I hung out with Japanese friends. So
Right.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
spoke Japanese all the time. So I
Right.
think that was bad in terms of improving my English skills. But you know what? In your case, you studied abroad in Tokyo and you spoke Japanese with your Taiwanese friend
Right.
or a
Yep.
Taiwanese friend. So I think that was good for you because I think sometimes it's important to get out of your comfort zone and you push yourself and you forced you to speak Japanese. So
Exactly.
I think you could use your time more effectively.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. Pushing yourself out of the comfort zone and getting used to not being afraid to make mistakes, basically, I think is super
Yeah,
important.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Some people are afraid of making mistakes, and you know what? Actually, I can relate to them because when I was a freshman, I couldn't speak English at all. So I kept silent all the time when I talked with people, and especially when there were Japanese people. I didn't try to speak English because I didn't want to like embarrass myself. So I kept
Right.
silent and actually I couldn't understand what they were saying. So that's another reason that I kept quiet.
Yeah, that's
And
so hard, yeah.
yeah, and even if I asked for repetition, even so I didn't understand what they said. So
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh, what should I do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hard part. I think that's the most stressful thing, personally. Like, a lot of people get more stressed out or they think it's harder to speak the foreign
Yeah.
language that they're studying. But for me, listening stresses me out way more because I have no control over how fast the other person is going to speak or, what their voice sounds like. So at least when I'm speaking, I'm in control. And even if I can't express myself super fluently, like I think I trust in myself enough that eventually I'll get my point across, that like I'll be able to say what I want to say. But when the other person is speaking, I have no control over that. And if they're speaking really fast or using a bunch of words that I don't know, then it's like, ah! And
Yeah,
like you
that's
said, even if you ask them to repeat themselves, and they do, but still like speaking fast or whatever, and it just, then you feel bad if you just keep asking them. And then, yeah.
yeah, that's true. I think, it depends on the person because when I talk with you, I think I can understand most words that you're saying. I
Hmm.
can't catch every single word though, but mostly I can understand what you're saying. But when I talk with someone else, I have a hard time catching what they say. So I think it depends on the person
Yeah.
about, listening.
Right. And I also want to say that if it's someone like I think I want people to not get too discouraged at first because sometimes it's just the way that someone talks, like literally their voice or just the way that they speak and their intonations and everything. And that's something that you can get used to as well because I remember even after going through language school, I was pretty good at Japanese and understanding people and having conversations. And then when I started a new job, there was like one of my coworkers, she just like her voice was just a little bit like lower. And I don't know, just the way that she spoke was just so hard for me to understand. But after a little while, I got used to the way she spoke, and
Ah,
then I learned to be able to understand what she was saying. So I think there's that too. Like sometimes certain people, just the way they speak, can be really hard to understand. But
yeah.
if it's someone, if it's not someone you're gonna have to speak with all the time, then it doesn't matter because, and if it is someone like a coworker or a friend or whoever,
Ah,
then you can get used to the way that they speak, and your brain will eventually learn to pick up those things and make sense of it. So I think it's just important for people to not get too discouraged or too stressed out at first when they're first learning and trying to speak in a foreign language. But yeah.
yeah, if you talk with them every day, I think you'll get used to them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, what did I try to say? Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the second reason, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, second, I wrote down new English words on a notepad, and that was helpful as well. I always carried a notepad with me when I went outside, and for example, when I had a conversation with my friends, when I took a class in university, when I watched YouTube videos, whenever I came across English words I didn't understand, I immediately wrote them down, and I think that was helpful. That's it.
That's a good one. I did something similar. I didn't have a physical notepad, but whenever I heard a word, I would just type it down in my phone. But I think if people can, it's better to do what you do because I've heard that like the physical act of writing something down like with your hand makes it easier to remember as opposed to just like
Oh,
typing it in with like buttons. Supposedly there's some sort of science there that says the act of actually physically writing the new word or whatever it is better for your memory to hold on to it. So I think that's also a great method. And that's, again, yeah, I did a version of that, but I didn't actually physically write it just because I'm a minimalist and I don't like to carry a lot of things on me if I don't have to.
Same here.
But I think that's a great idea. In the future, I might try that. Just get like a tiny little notepad and write it down. But I still found success even just writing it in my phone or typing it in my phone or whatever.
Actually, same here. I'm the same because, when I was in university, I carried a notepad, but not anymore. I always use my laptop. So I take notes using my laptop. So I don't carry anything with me anymore. I
Right.
always use like Google spreadsheet.
Right.
And
yeah,
every
yeah.
time every time I hear new words and expressions, I wrote them down on Google spreadsheet. And I
Yeah.
don't use a notepad. So
Right.
yeah, same.
Yep. Yeah. But that is a good method for people for sure.
Yeah, and when I'm outside, I take notes online.
Mm-hmm.
So you can create your own like group. So
Mm-hmm.
I always take notes online, and in the group, I'm the only person there. So I don't send the message to anyone. I just
Right.
see it by myself. That's what I always do when I'm outside.
That's a clever method as well. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So third, I talk to myself in English. This was helpful as well. I talk to myself in these situations. For example, when I'm cooking, when I'm in the shower, when I'm walking on the street, I've been continuing to talk to myself even now. This has increased the number of English expressions that I can use.
Yeah.
Go ahead, your turn.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. For me, the big one for me is like when I'm driving, because I drive to work and I drive home from work. I also try to listen to Japanese music a lot, which I think is similar, not quite as good as talking to yourself, but yeah. But I think yeah, whenever I'm driving or just yeah, like kind of like you said, just throughout the day, like whenever I'm doing my tasks, whenever I'm cooking food or whatever, I try to just speak to myself in Japanese. Even if it's not out loud, I try to think in Japanese. And sort of just like narrate what I'm doing throughout the day, like, ja ima kara ryori suru ka, just like talking to yourself. It's just like stuff like that, which I think is really helpful. And then, like, again, I could be better about this because I've been busy with work and stuff, but ideally too, like whenever you learn a new word or whatever, like try to find as many opportunities to speak to yourself or think about and like using that word. Like I remember as soon as I learned the word kosuru, which is like to scrub, I made sure now like every time I wash dishes, I'm like, kosuru, kosuru, kosuru. It's just like, so you try to talk to yourself and use the new words you learn as soon as you can, as soon as you find a situation to apply them to. I think that's super important to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If you have the experience of using the word, you can, next time when you want to use a word, you can use it. So I think that's very good.
Yeah.
Actually, I talk to myself every day in the shower these days. So
Yeah.
I just do the same thing when I talk with someone else. So in this case, I prepared like 3 reasons and I practiced speaking English and then I just do the same thing in this lesson. So
Right. Yeah. I do agree though. I really think that that's like one of the most important things. So I guess going along with that, I've heard it said like you should forget your native language. So as much as possible, try to imagine that you do not even, like for me, like I tried to just forget that I know English and just imagine that Japanese is my only language that I know. And then that forces your brain to use Japanese in my case, or whatever language you're studying, it forces your brain to use that language and to learn it and to hold on to it. And then it also is going to force you to like learn new words. Because if you imagine like, oh, I don't know English, like I have to only use Japanese, then for those moments you'll be forced to look up a word in English or Japanese or whatever language you're studying. And then I guess for that moment you'll have to use your native language to translate it and understand it, but still it forces you to then like learn new words as well. So I think that's important.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, cool.
Forcing yourself to speak the languages, I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looks like we're about out of time for today, but is 2 weeks good?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Today.
Remind me next time, I'd like to talk about kind of like health and like brain health things too, because I think that's related to studying as well, if we have time next time or whenever.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Take
Yeah,
care.
cool. Thank you, Taku. Take care.
現在、英語コーチング、英語ティーチングの生徒さんを募集しています。 英語力が伸び悩んでいる、TOEIC の点数が頭打ちしている、継続することが難しい。このような方は無料カウンセリングへどうぞ。下の概要欄のリンクから申し込むことができます。ぜひ無料カウンセリングでお会いしましょう。